Hey everybody, today we're going to learn how to build an accordion section like this in Squarespace. I just want to note first, if you just don't care necessarily about learning this, or if you just want a really quick and easy way to add this to your website or your client's website, I have a plugin that's really easy to install. All you do is, once you put in the base code, you just copy and paste in this to start an accordion, and all your blocks below it will become an accordion section. It's really easy, very simple. But if you want to learn a little bit more about the code behind it, that's what I'm going to be going over today, teaching you how to build it a little bit more. So if you're interested in that, stick around. Here we go. All right, so let's take a look at how we build accordion sections. So the first thing, as we get started, we're going to be using a combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you're interested in learning more about those things, that's what I'm going to be going over. So let's get started. As with most plugins you want to build in Squarespace, if you're building it straight from scratch, you either want to use a Squarespace block and adapt that using JavaScript and CSS, or start from straight HTML code, and that's where we're going to start today. So I'm going to hit edit and jump into here, and I want to create my HTML first. So I'm going to add in a code block right there. It didn't look like it added. So there we go. So I want 3 elements in this. I want the whole accordion block, and then within it, like at the top, I want my title section, and this is the section I'm going to click on that's going to expand the content below. So I want my title section, and then I want my content section. So I'm going to have 3 elements in there. So I'm going to start off by creating a div, and we'll call this class equals, this is just your standard HTML syntax, class equals, we'll just call this accordion block. We'll just call it that. And then we have this div here. And so within this, I want 2 other sections. So I'm going to create another div here with a class equals, let's call it accordion title, right? And then we'll do another one. And I'm doing this not within our title, but below, because these are going to be sibling elements. These are going to be right beside each other. Class equals, we'll just call this the accordion panel, right? Okay, so here are our 3 elements. And let's just start off by creating some content within them. So we'll call this, the title is going to be FAQ number 1. And our content here, I have this plugin here. It's fantastic. I use it all the time. I'll try and put it in the show notes, but it just gives you a bunch of ad lorem text. So I'm just going to copy that. It's just a bunch of gibberish right there. Ooh, probably don't need 2 paragraphs, we'll just do 1. So there we go. So this is our base HTML structure. Now we want to use a little CSS. Let's play around with some CSS to give this some styles, and then maybe actually start the process of hiding this panel element, because we want this to be hidden initially, and then as we click on this element, we want this to be displayed. So that's the general idea of what we're doing here. So I'm going to hit apply. Done, save. Let's go to our CSS, home, design, custom CSS. So I'm going to create a bunch of space here so we're not getting confused with what's already there. Now, let's say I forgot what our classes were. Let's just say I forgot, not that I actually have. I'm going to go to right click on my page here, hit inspect, and then we can pull open this entire thing. I'm going to grab my selection tool right here and hover over our code block, and I can click on this content right here. And let's just start off by making this just disappear. Let's do that. So this accordion panel. So I'm going to copy that class. Let's minimize that, exit out of here. Since it's a class, we're using dot, because that's a dot. If we were selecting an ID, we'd use a hashtag. If it was a data attribute, we'd do these square brackets. But we're doing a class, so we're going to start off with a dot, then paste in our accordion panel. So now that we've selected our accordion panel like this, we've added in our opening and closing curly brackets. Let's apply some styles to this. We could do fun stuff. We could do whatever we wanted, like font weight 700 and make it super bold or something. But that's not really what we want to do. We just want to say, let's say display none, and that'll make it disappear. Okay, now let's give our title a little class here. So dot accordion title, and let's opening and closing curly brackets. This maybe we actually do want to give it a font weight of 700. 800 might be a little much. 700. Maybe we want to give it an after attribute, and an after attribute creates another. It's not an after attribute. It's an after pseudo element. It creates another element after it, and the default is inline. So if I do and, which is let's not do and because that's a less specific. We'll just do our selector here again. Dot accordion title colon after, and we'll do content colon, and we'll do the plus sign, right? And so there we have our little plus here, but actually it might look a little bit better before. So we're going to add that before and then give it a semicolon so we can add another property here, margin right 17 pixels because that's sort of the Squarespace default. And then let's give our entire accordion title, which includes our before attribute, our before element, a border bottom. How about 1 pixel solid? If you just do solid, you can for these borders, honestly, you could just do solid and it's going to apply. I think the default is 2 pixels. Let's see if I put in 2 pixels if it changes. I think the standard is 2 pixels. No, maybe it's 3 pixels. So you can just say solid and it's going to apply, but I just wanted a thin border, so I'm going to say 1 pixel solid, and then we're going to give it maybe 777. We'll just sort of make it a little less black there. So we have that underline. So this is starting to look good. We have our content below displayed. If we remove it, it's there. Okay, so this is starting to look how we want it to look. Now, actually, I'm going to get rid of this display none because it might be better for us to see it. Now let's add our JavaScript, our clicking elements. So click hover is something I could do. So if I wanted to make the color of all of this, let's just say 777. So that's a little bit opaque there. And then I added a hover attribute to our accordion title. So I'm going to do, again, our accordion title selector here. And then when we hover over that element, we're going to change the color to which is #000 is just straight black. It's very black, not this gray. And so as I hover over it, you can see it turns the straight black. And so that's looking more like I want it to do. But we can do these hover elements in CSS. We can't do click elements. You see, I'm like clicking on it. Nothing's working. You can't do click events with CSS. You have to use JavaScript. So I'm going to save this and we're going to jump in and we're going to create some JavaScript. JavaScript has to be put in within these script tags. And this is just telling the browser to run whatever is between these two as, something didn't save there. Whatever is between this opening and closing script tag as a JavaScript. So we're going to use jQuery, which is another language that's written on top of JavaScript, and it makes it a little bit easier to read and write. So I'm going to do our standard jQuery function, opening, closing, and this is just saying this isn't spelled right. So here's our function, and this is the general idea of this is the same as our CSS. So if we look at our CSS over here, you see our CSS, we have our selector here, and then all of this right here between our opening and closing curly brackets only gets applied to our selector here, right? So same thing with JavaScript here. Everything between our opening and closing contents, our opening and closing elements here, only gets applied to whatever this function means. And this function means run this JavaScript once you've loaded the entire page. And that's just general good practice. You don't have to have that, but it's good practice to do that just because some of the elements you might be referring to in your JavaScript might not be loaded on the page and you might get errors. So it's usually good to just start with this. So now we're going to jump between here. So what we want to do is we want to select this element, and when we click on that element, we want to display this element. That's just the general idea of how these accordions work. So I could say our $, opening, closing parentheses, within quotes, we can grab our selector right here, which is, we want to use our accordion title class, same as CSS, accordion title. We'll just do on click. And so when it's clicked, we're going to run a function, and that function, same thing as this is saying, let's wait for everything between these two. Let's wait for the page to load before we run anything between those two. Let's wait once our accordion title is clicked, then run anything between here. So that's what we're doing right here. And what we want to do is grab this accordion panel and give it a display none, or a display block rather. Accordion panel dot, we'll just say CSS. In brackets, we do our opening and closing. This is just your standard syntax, display, colon, block, right? So let's just hit apply, done, save. Let's see if this works. So let's change this to display none, because there would be nothing to display. And if I click on this, nothing happens. All right, let's take a look at what is happening here. So if I jump back into our code, we have on click function, our accordion panel display block. So that looks like it should, we have this extra script tag down here that's doing something. That doesn't need to be there. Let's hit save. It's initially displayed none, and then as I click on it, still nothing is happening. Let's see if we have any errors in our console. So we haven't loaded jQuery. So that's what this is saying. Our $. So you remember I said earlier, like we're going to use JavaScript and jQuery on top of that. We have to load jQuery first. So I'm going to hit this plus, open up a new tab here, and just say jQuery CDN, and that just means Content Delivery Network. So I'm going to click on that. We want to get the most recent version of jQuery. This is what I mean by installing. Installing isn't really the best word. It basically just means putting a link to it on your website and pulling, and that installs it. Just putting a link to it. You have to do a special link, but just put the link on and it'll install jQuery. So I'm going to click minified, copy right there, go back to our website, edit, and then in our settings, advanced, and then paste it right there. So within script tags, this is the source. This is basically the link that it's pulling, and it's just going to load that. I'm going to hit save, done, and we won't have those errors anymore. And then as I click on it, it displays. Great. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. But you see, as I click on it again, it doesn't not display. We want it to go toggle back and forth. So we need to add some other things. What might work better instead of display none is give it a height, give it a minimum height. And so the height of it becomes 0. That's what we want to do. And that's typically what you want to do when you're using JavaScript. You don't really want to give it CSS values. You want to give it a class. You want to add and remove classes. And that way you can easily manipulate these things through CSS. So I'm just going to do toggle class, and we'll just create another class called active accordion. How about that? Okay, so we're going to hit apply, done, save, and let's just see if that's working. I'm going to maximize this, right click over here, hit inspect, and what we're doing, the JavaScript we created should be turning on, toggling on and off every single time we click. If it's on, turn it off. If it's off, turn it on. Toggling are a class on that accordion panel element. So I'm going to grab my selector here. I'm going to hover over this content right here. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to look for that accordion panel right here. So this is the element I have my eye on right here, right? And then as I click on this, we should see, there we go, active accordion turns on. If I click again, active accordion turns off. So that is what that JavaScript, that jQuery is doing. It's toggling a class onto this HTML element on and off. So that's pretty cool, right? So all we got to do is style that class. What do we want that class to be? Accordion. So we could, one way to do it is I could just take this display none. So it's going to pop up there and give our, or no, we'll keep that actually on the accordion panel none. And then with the accordion panel, if it has that CSS, our accordion panel selector plus, let's click it again, our active accordion. So if it has both of those, let's do both of those, add dots. And since they're on the same element, there's no space, we'll give it a display block. Here we go. And so as I click on that, pops on and off. So that's actually pretty cool. That's what I want. So one extra thing I could add here is just to make it, so you see I have my cursor right there is just a text highlight thing. I might want that to be, let's change our cursor as I hover. I want to change on our hover selector. Cursor, let's use pointer, I think is what it's called. Ooh, hover, that's not right. Pointer, there we go. So now that looks right. So there we go. So let's hit edit. So there we go. So let's look at that one more time. Our JavaScript is saying, let's select our accordion title, and then on click, we want to toggle the accordion panel with the class active accordion. That's great, right? Wrong. You don't know how wrong that is. I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's say we want to add more than one fax here, right? So I'm going to copy all of this content, right? Let's copy that, copy. Let's paste it right below. We got another, hit apply, done, save. Okay, this is great. And as I click on it, nothing's happening there. Well, why isn't anything happening? It's because it's getting confused a little bit. Actually, I think what's happening is as you click on it, it does the JavaScript twice. If I throw in a third right there, let's see if, see, all of it opens at the same time because I'm clicking on it. So our JavaScript is saying, let's select our accordion panel, and then on click of that, then do this action, create this action. But we have multiple of these accordion panels, so it's becoming an issue. We need to find a way to be more unique with how we're selecting these. We only want, as I click this one right here, this accordion title, I want the content of that to go low. So the way you can do that is adding in an ID here. So again, we are in the code block of our first FAQ section. I'm going to add an ID. IDs in general should be unique per page, not website, but per page. So ID equals, and between quote marks, let's just call this accordion-1. You can call this whatever you want. But I'm just going to use that accordion. And because this is an ID, the selector for this is going to be a hashtag. And because this element is a parent of this element and this element, these two guys right here, these are within our accordion1 element. That means they're children of this element. We use a space right there. So I'm going to do hashtag because it's an ID, and then our accordion1. So now this is saying when we select the accordion title that is within the element with an ID of accordion1, then let's run this click element, this click event. And then we need to do the same in here. We only want to open the panel of we only want to open the element with a class of accordion panel that is within the element with an ID of accordion1, and that's right here. So that's this one specific one. So that's what we need to do to create unique fact sections right there. So I'm going to hit apply, done, save, and this should work just for the first element. There we go. That's what we want. So now let's just do that to the others. Let's just change that to fact2. Give this an ID equals accordion-2 right there. And then let's put these in front as well. There we go. And the same thing here. So I'm just going to do a bunch of copying and pasting just to make it easier on all of us here, make it quicker. All right, and this should make unique fact sections for each one of these. So let's see if this works. I'm gonna click on that, right. If I click on this one, perfect. So each one of these is their own unique fact section. So that's how you do it. This is our code that makes it happen, our CSS. Here is our base HTML that makes it happen. You just need to make sure to change right there is our base HTML. You just need to make sure to change our accordion-1, make that whatever unique value. I would just suggest making that 2, 3, whatever number you are on the page. And then changing our function right here. You got to create a function for each click event for each one of these elements, and you got to make sure to change the number to match the ID there. But that's the general idea of how you make it work. So I hope that helps. I hope that clarifies a little bit of this and starts you a little bit down your journey of learning more about CSS, HTML, and JavaScript within Squarespace. Let me know if you have any questions. Subscribe to my newsletter, my YouTube channel, buy a plugin if you want. That would be super helpful. Adios. Take it easy.